It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
Mira comes charging out! Oh. This is enormous from Dave!
And, there you go. I'll give you the headset here, sir, if you want to come up and join us.
All thanks to MECWACARE, a proud partner of the VAFA.
He runs around, he goes for goal! He does it!
What a goal from Tilly!
This is for the love of the game.
No, you keep at it, mate. Keep at it. There's a job for you somewhere.
The umpire's just given away a free kick, so hopefully this breaks up the game a bit.
Here's your host, Joey Pignataro.
Turn the mic on.
Hello everyone and welcome to For the Love of the Game, the official podcast of the Ammos. We're here all thanks to MECWACARE. It is the greatest podcast in the history of the world. So I was reminded over the weekend from our stack of listeners who love joining every single week, including the coach of Old Scotch, Mark Nat, who flicked a nice message across last week after a terrific win at the TH King Oval. And yes, Natty, I did not predict you guys to kick 99 points a beat St Kevin's as I welcome in Jason Bennett and Paddy Grindlay. Hello, lads.
Hello, Joey. How are you?
I only got 4 last week.
Yes,
just
very
missed on
disappointing.
St Kevin's.
Yes, I got a message from Mark Nat saying make sure Joey doesn't claim 5 this week because he didn't tip us.
Well, I did at the end of the game, just not before it.
I want to start with a question.
Oh, okay.
Do we have a new flag favourite?
Oh, you've been
Buck
conned.
Premier Men's.
Oh, you've been absolutely conned here.
Do we have a new flag favourite?
I'll go first on this one.
Old Scotch has, in the last 2 weeks, beaten Old Brighton and St Kevin's.
You don't have to convince me, Jace.
Yeah, because Scotch Radio has seen them play.
I've got the one out. I thought about this on the way in today, and I was coming up with all these reasons to stick with the Tunners. And then I thought, well, there's a team that's beaten them, and then the other team that's competing for the premiership, or that we've thought would be competing for that number 1 seed in the last 2 weeks, and that's the Cardinals. And they did it on the weekend without James Tarrant. That is as dominant as a performance I've seen from them all season. We'll probably get into the way the game played out in a little bit, but I was so impressed that they were able to play their own brand of footy, win at the TH King, and do so after a really challenging game the week beforehand where they lost players, so they had to make some forced changes. That is as emphatic as a statement that you can make at this point of the season.
St Kevin's won the clearance battle, so they got their hands on the football, but then Old Scotch controlled the game post-clearance, didn't they? Relentless pressure, forced Scob into turnovers, Cards then capitalised on those. Old Scotch controlled the skies, they dominated contested marks, and as you mentioned, despite James Tarrant not being there, they were more efficient inside 50. They had 5 multiple goal scorers. Valentine Clark and Angus Simons all kicked 3 apiece, so they found multiple avenues to goal. And, Joey, it's an historic win for them against a team that's owned them for years and years and years.
Well, they've done this over the last couple of years now. They had the Old Xavs as their bunny for a long, long time and couldn't overcome them. They've now overcome them almost every time they play, the last 3 or 4 times. Never won at the TH King Oval before the weekend just gone. And
9 straight losses against St Kevin's since they came back in Premier Men's in 2018.
Well, Will Strange was walking around the commentary booth and he was giving us live stats as he went because he didn't even know. He was trying to spool back through the record books. He was on 4 different websites.
Pretending like
no one had any idea. We went with 3 different years on air before we finally came up with 2006, I think, and I don't even think that was right,
So
Jason.
are you saying yes, there's a new flag favourite,
Yeah,
Paddy?
I think you have to.
And you're saying no, Joey?
I am saying not yet to Old Scotch. I've got them now second. I've still
Second past who?
They've gone past St Kevin's for mine for a number of reasons, and the main one is obviously what we have highlighted over the last few weeks with the horrific injury to Michael Pisker and just, I think, the emotional toll that some of the players have had to deal with and handle over the last few weeks, where you can totally understand why football is not their number 1 priority at the moment at St Kevin's, and again, totally understandable, and our thoughts remain with Michael Pisker. Old Scotch second, Old Brighton, off the back of the way they responded to the loss on the weekend. You can understand them being up for 10 weeks in a row without losing, going out to Old Scotch last week, who are up for the fight, who have set themselves for these last 2 weeks. And then they go back to Brighton Beach Oval and absolutely do what they should do and wallop St Bernard's the way they did. I've still got them first. I love, though, looking at the Old Scotch team on the weekend, Will Clark's performance, because last week he was awesome. This week he goes forward. Is he the player who replaced James Tarrant, or did he just keep roaming forward and try to expose Billy Coates with some speed?
It was interesting because he started in the ruck, and I think the idea is that this is something we haven't quite spoken about, but Natty highlighted during the week. He's actually a really good kick of the footy. He's
awesome.
A beautiful kick of the football. And so they used him through the middle of the ground, but then having Sam Grant back from Coburg is a massive help because they were able to sort of switch the approach a bit. I think Billy Coates, we know the way he's going to play. He's such a physical ruck. He'll stay in there all day if he has to. He'll beat you up around the footy. He imposes himself on the smaller midfielders. So Clark was sort of in this great switch with Grant where they sort of gave him two different things to look at, Coates. So he didn't just have to worry about Will Clark. He had to worry about Sam Grant coming up, and he's got such a lovely leap. He's over 200 centimetres from memory, and he's a really, really good mark. He's got great hands. So Coates had his hands full with two dominant big guys, and then when Will Clark went forward, it seemed, and this happened a fair bit, and I'd like to talk about this a little bit more, the amount of times the big Scotch boys got in space and were able to take almost uncontested marks in acres of space inside forward 45 was astounding. And I think that was because Clark and Grant were on this switch from centre-half forward into the ruck, and one was always pushing forward and giving Coates something to worry about, and the St Kevin's defensive structure. They just didn't really have a way around it, the Scobbers.
Well, the one thing you cannot underestimate, and again, I just mentioned Michael Pisker from the injury side of things, is his spot in the back six for the St Kevin's. He was a stabiliser in there for them. So it's not unsurprising at the TH King Oval, which is quite a small ground, that they're losing a bit of their structure behind the footy. As well as seeing the way the speed the Cardinals play the ball, if they can get St Kevin's on the bounce at TH King Oval, they're usually out of place because they've all pushed so far up the ground. They can get over the back, Jason. Ryan Valentine was another one. I think after halftime last week, Paddy, he stood up because he knew he was going to be the focal point. He's done it again here with 3 goals.
He has. But the stat I want to point you to is marks inside 50. So we've talked about the Hart and Kerr or Kerr and Hart combination for the Scobbers. They had 4 marks inside 50 between them. Clark and Valentine had 10.
Yeah, so and that's usually a massive strength of St Kevin's.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think Ryan was excellent, but the great thing I think that Mark Nat will be thinking of on the Monday review is that it wasn't Valentine or bust. It wasn't, we don't have James Tarrant. We're just going to have to sit it on Ryan's head. He actually got to relax a little bit. He got to sort of play out of the square. He came up when he was needed to, but Clark and Grant were doing that work in between the ruck division and full forward that Ryan actually got to play his role. So he didn't have to be the saviour for the Cardinals.
What's your read on it, Chase?
I'm really impressed with Old Scotch, and I think recent form is the only form that matters. I take your point about Michael Pisker and his impact both emotionally and tactically from just in terms of his absence in the team. I think the bye comes at a great time for St Kevin's.
Yes, I agree with that.
Off the back of this loss.
Yep.
They've now got a chance to just catch their breath, compose themselves. Michael's on the upswing, which is fantastic. So that will hopefully lower the level of anxiety that they have worrying about him as he starts on his road to recovery. And now all the best to Michael. And it was wonderful to hear that he was sitting up in the hospital bed listening to the SEN coverage on the weekend. So I think it comes at a good time. Gives St Kevin's a great chance to reset. Get it, just find that hunger and anger and fire up again. They've got University Blacks, St Bernard's, and then they'll finish with Old Brighton. So they'll have a couple of games off the back of the break to work themselves back up into their best form, knowing that Old Brighton waits for them in the last round. And both those teams are going to be forged in fire. They're going to come into finals having played each other in the last round. Now, history will tell us later whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing to have a really, really tough game the week before the finals. But yeah, look, I take your point. Where do I see Old Scotch at the moment? I think off the back of exposed form, you would have to have them, I would say, equal with Old Brighton.
Equal.
Take the splinters out of your backside,
Equal.
Jace.
If it's purely on form, obviously Old Scotch are the premiership favourites because they knocked them off last week. But I do take your point also about the fact that Old Brighton were up for a long time. And maybe it was a one-off and they responded. So what it does tell me is there's going to be one really stiff team come September that's not even going to make the grand final. So who plays who in that first final to avoid the prelim is going to be enormous.
Well, I'm not sold on the Old Xavs being fourth right now.
That's going to be my next question. Lovely segue, Joey.
Oh, okay.
Did we see the upset of the year on the weekend with Uni Blacks beating Old Xavs, or was it something that wasn't as unexpected to you?
Not to me, it wasn't. Because twice last year, the University Blacks got the Old Xavs. I understand it's a totally different lineup to what was running out on the park in 2023, particularly at this point of the year for the Old Xavs. Their season was, for some reason, the paranoia had set in at Turek Park. They thought they were going to get relegated after they lost to University Blacks last year. That's not the case this year. But University Blacks, form will say that their back half of the season is a lot stronger than their first half of the year. I'm not surprised. My upset of the season, I've got 2 of them. the very first game Collegians took to the park this year, the Old Melburnians blew them away. Now, I know it was the first game of the year, so how can you possibly have an upset? But the reigning premiers embarrassed the Old Melburnians in 2023. And then for the first game of the year, that to happen was one for mine. The other one was the game we were at, St Bernard's and the University Blues. Not because I'm a St Bernard's boy. The University Blues went into that game on a 4 or 5 game winning streak, blowing away Old Brighton Collegians and the Old Xavs in the lead up to that game. And then St Bernard's sent them away packing with 7 goals against them on that particular day. This is in the top 3, though, but it's not my number 1, Paddy.
I'm sort of on the side, I think, of that Collegians game as well. But I think we have to consider that the Xavs beat the Blues by 99 points 2 weeks ago.
And we're coming off a 4-game winning streak.
Yep. They were up by about 80 points at halftime. They played one of the most dominant first halves of the season. And we had this discussion last week about which of these sides are going to go down. And we thought the Blacks were a good nominee. And we're catching up with Dale Bauer in a moment. The fact that they've responded to that game by dropping this one at home is stunning, especially considering that we probably thought that we had a good idea about the 4 teams going through. So Brighton, St Kevin's and Old Scotch we were pretty sure about. It seemed that the Old Xavs had made the case and they looked like they were going to take that 4th spot. It's open again. They haven't been able to close the door. There's still 3 games left. I think it's not the number 1 upset. It is absolutely the number 2 upset of the season.
So when you look at Black's form leading into this, round 9, they lost to St Kevin's by 53. They lost to Old Brighton by 69. They lost to Old Scotch by 15 in a low-scoring slog at the college. They got belted by Collegians by 76. They got beaten by St Bernard's by 35. Then came back and beat the Old Melburnians last week, and then beat this Old Xavs. Like, that is a stunning turnaround. I mean, I'm not. With due respect to Old Melburnians, beating them by 4 goals at home is a win that Blacks would expect to have. To then be able to turn around and do this to an Old Xavs side without Dan Hanbury, but Dan Donati tells us that Dan was just unavailable this week and will be back post the bye to continue playing. But can Dan have that bigger an influence?
Yeah, there's still Sam Fisher and Marcus Stavru and Dennis Simiopoulos in that team. So you look down the team sheet for the Old Xavs, it's not like they've had 6 guys go out.
Well, no, you're right on that front. And looking at the team sheet, they are still relatively strong. Is there a case, and this is purely just a speculative angle, is there a case of the Old Xavs, whether consciously or subconsciously, going, we're just playing the University Blacks. We've just walloped the University Blues by 99 points. This is going to be a walkover. Perfect day, perfect conditions on Saturday for footy. We're playing at home. The University Blacks haven't got a hell of a lot to play for. As you said, they've only come off a 4-goal win against Old Melburnians. I can't imagine Dan Donati would be saying any of this in a pre-game, but somewhere in the back of their minds or on a Thursday night going, hey, we're in the 4. We're playing the University Blacks. This is just going to happen for us.
When you consider that before the Uni Blues game, they had this game against Collegians where it did feel that whoever wins is going to have the head start in competing for that 4th spot, and they passed that test. They won that game by 11 points. I think yes, because they'd clearly had 2 weeks in a row where they had a good reason to feel good about themselves. They'd won these 2 important games. They'd knocked over Collegians. They smashed the Uni Blues. All signs point to this team probably not taking this clash seriously enough.
What really frustrates me now is we've got a bye, so they're going to stew on it for 2 weeks and they're going to go out to the Snake Pit, Jace, and wallop the Snow Dogs probably.
The bye comes at an interesting time again, doesn't it? A bye with 3 weeks to go in a season when the finals races and relegation races, it throws a grenade into everything. So that does put Collegians back in the hunt for 4th spot now. They're level with Old Xavs on 36 points and 8% differential. Both teams will play Old Brighton and Old Scotch in the final 3 weeks. Xavs will face St Bernard's in the next round, while the Lions will host Fitzroy in the final round. So both play Old Brighton and Old Scotch, so those two cancel each other out. Xavs will play St Bernard's away. And the Lions will host Fitzroy in the final round.
And Dale Bauer has been good enough to join us, the coach of the University Blacks. 10-7-67, 8-12-60, as you mentioned, Jace. They went out to Toorak Park and had a terrific win. Hello, Dale Bauer.
G'day, how you going?
Dale, I'm going very well. Great to hear your voice and you join us on For the Love of the Game. Loved getting your insights last year. Take us through particularly the weekend just gone. You had to hang on in that final quarter when Xavs came at you.
Yeah, we were. It was an interesting game because it's a bit warmer Toorak Park was in great condition, so a really quick, flat track, and the ball bounced, from one end to the other really quickly. So there's a lot of running, and a few of our guys were starting to run out of petrol tickets. So, we just hung on. Xavs really came at us in the last quarter, and we were lucky enough to hang on. The guys fought really hard to the end. So, I was really proud of their efforts.
Dale, I'm pretty keen to get your thoughts on how you've seen this year overall for the University Blacks. I've looked at your squad a couple of times throughout this year, and it looks different to what it was in 2023, particularly the most obvious notable absentee is Josh Steadman after announcing his retirement. How have you gone about filling the spot that he leaves, but also just rounding out your 22 every weekend?
Yeah, we lost. Yeah, obviously Josh was a massive loss. And so we actively went out to get a ruckman, which we did, a guy called Angus Rana from South Australia. And then we've had access to Sam Conway early in the year as well, who's got us as his home club and plays at Werribee. So at certain points early in the year, we had both those guys available. So fitting them both in and playing one of them forward. At this stage, we don't have either. So that's been a gap to fill since the mid-season. Some other guys we lost last year, like Ozzie Steer was a great player for us. Bede Marnes retired. No Hugh Curnow. Nick Hay has gone back to New South Wales. Tom Larby, a few other guys. So we sort of lost some really good experience again. And it's been probably the last 3 years we've lost quite a bit of experience over those 3 years. So, and we've sort of been replacing, we've picked up a few sort of more mature types, but we've mostly been replacing them with younger guys. And this year probably impacted us a bit more we've had probably not as good a run with the injuries we had last year. So, Maxi Dow hasn't played. He played his first game against St Bernard's a couple of weeks ago. And so starting to get our list back together now a little bit. But we probably had that middle pack. I think we lost 5 in a row where we were just probably, player availability-wise and depth, it tested us a bit. Yeah, so we hung in and fought hard, and some weeks we were able to bring a good performance, and some weeks we just got sort of, blown away a little bit by some of the good teams. But I feel now that we're starting, we're on the right track now to where we want to be. It's a bit late in the season, but hopefully we're going to be able to do enough to stay up. Yeah.
Being a university-based club, Dale, obviously different sort of recruiting profile and different feeder program to, say, a community club or an old school club. I guess it's got its ups and its downs, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. Like the university does give you access to a lot of footballers. And look, we tend to not do as well out of the kids going to the 19s as the Blues do at this stage. So we're not getting as good a feeder through from our 19s as most clubs do. So we've got to, and look, every club has their own different challenges. That's probably our challenge. So we're always trying to find players from different sources, and local kids in the area and country kids moving down that aren't necessarily going to Melbourne Uni, but might be going to uni somewhere else. So we do lean on our the guys we've got at the club, getting some of their mates in and that sort of thing. But we have got a really good group of young kids there at the moment. Well, you're 19 to sort of 21, 22-year-olds, a good group there. I think if we can keep that group together, we've got something to build on, and we've still got some good top-end senior players around that'll hopefully stay around a bit longer, and hopefully we can build something, yeah.
One of those younger guys is a 20-year-old called Away Macking, who is one of the most exciting players in the VAFA. He seems to take a Mark of the Year contender every second week, Joey. Just about touches the sky. Can you tell us a little bit about Away's story?
Yeah, so he came to us at the start of last year, but he did do some pre-season with us in the 2020 year when he was about, he would have only been like 15 or 16. He came down and trained with us. He's mates with the Robertson boys who play with us, Sam and Henry. And he sort of went and did a bit of footy with the Chargers. Sorry, the Cannons. and then played at Northcote Park for a year and was in Essendon's Next Generation Academy. And then, leading into 2023, he came down did a bit of pre-season, and we were lucky enough to talk him into playing with us. And he played mostly, sort of threw him around a bit forward back last year, and he showed great potential. Went and did a pre-season at Essendon VFL along with a couple of other guys from our club, and was lucky enough to make the list. So he's on the list there. And this year he's just been fantastic, up forward. And now we've thrown him back occasionally here and there, and we've thrown him back the last couple of weeks. And on the weekend he was just sensational. Yeah, he had a great game.
Has he already won Mark of the Year this year, Paddy, in your eyes?
I think it would be hard to take off him. I haven't seen... Ollie Barter had a crack at it over the weekend that it wasn't paid, so I think away...
Well, he can't win if it's not paid.
There you go.
That can make it hard.
Tends to be the case. I think away would be clubhouse leader, and I think he's got number 2, 3 and 4 sewed up as well.
There you go. That's a nice little feather in the cap for away making. Dale, the last couple of weeks, we just talked about it. You beat the Old Xavs on the weekend out at Toorak Park. Last week against the Old Melburnians. How much of that momentum for the last fortnight do you take into the final 3 games of the season?
Oh, look, we're looking to finish off strongly, and we sort of made that a target for the last few weeks to build up that we want to finish really strongly, and we need to finish strongly if we want to stay in Premier. And that hasn't changed. So we're hopeful of still getting a few more players back over the next couple of weeks, obviously after the bye. But look, to be honest, we took a good lesson out of the St Bernard's game. We went out there, and obviously it's one of those sort of relegation type games of 2 teams in the relegation frame. So we went out there hopeful of getting the win, and to be honest, St Bernard's completely outworked us and really deserved the win. And it sort of, to be honest, we learnt a bit from that we needed to lift our game in that area a little bit, and the boys took it into Old Melburnians, and we're fantastic with their work rate and effort and pressure. We base our game a lot around the pressure around the ball and our tackling and that part of the game, and they were fantastic against OMs, and they're able to take it in again the following week into Old Xavs, which I think is a big step for us, because sometimes we can sort of, in the past and even last year, we bring a great effort one week and it was hard to sustain it the following week. So to be able to do it 2 weeks in a row at that level was great for us.
Your inside game's been strong all year. As you said, you contested stuff, Dale. You've always ranked highly in clearances and contested possession, and as number 1 in tackling, etc., even contested marking, you're number 3 in the competition. Has it been teams getting you on the outside? Has that been the difficulty? I know you've also had some issues sort of converting the work into scoreboard pressure. Are they the sort of main areas that you guys have sort of focused on as a coaching group?
Yeah, so we just probably, at times, at our best, we can use the footy on the outside and actually convert and take the ball forward when we're playing really well. But when we're not quite there, our offense has been an issue for us. So that's something we've been continually looking to work on. And also, if we're a little bit off on our contest and pressure stuff, the teams have got us on the outside, and we haven't been able to defend their ball movements. So we've been beaten by, our bigger margins against some of the good teams like St Kevin's, Brighton, the second time around, and probably Collegians just after the break. We weren't able to do well enough in the contest, around the contest with pressure. And once the ball gets on the outside, we haven't been able to defend well enough. Yeah, so it's definitely that inside game that, is really important to us. But, we're still trying to work better on taking our opportunities in offence and being able to shut the other teams down in defence when we're not winning the inside stuff.
One of those inside guys, and this is a surname you'll recognise, Jace, is Lou Vesio, who brought up 100 games for the club on the weekend. He's a really physical inside presence, and he's got a bit of transition ability as well. Can you tell us a little bit about Lou's journey at the footy club and what kind of player he is?
Yeah, look, Lou, I think he started before I was there, but I think he came to the club from Montrose, and he would have came in, I reckon, around 17 or maybe 2018, so before I started. But, he's he's transitioned from, in my time, from being a sort of winger, half-back, into a mid, high half-forward, high half-back. Really skillful player, can use the footy really well, can do some amazing things, ball in hand. But his physical game's really good. Like his tackling game is fantastic. His ability to hit contests, and he can at times inspire us with his acts. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes he'll just turn a game with something he does. So he's a really important player for us. Great guy around the club. Really funny guy. Great personality. The players love him, and I think they showed that on the weekend by the way they played for him for his 100th.
So you're now a game and a half out of the drop zone, Dale, ahead of Old Melburnians. With 3 games to go, you've got St Kevin's off the break. Then you've got Fitzroy in a massive game at Brunswick Street, and then you finish with the University Derby. So the great thing for you guys now is your destiny's in your own hands.
Yeah, so we sort of thought a while back, when we lost those 4 or 5 in a row, we sort of thought, well, what's going to, we need 7, probably against 7 wins is going to keep you up. So we sort of thought that would mean that we could control it if we could win 7. Now, obviously, every week you go and try to win every game, that's in front of you. You do everything you can to win it. But we thought if we can get 7 wins, that will guarantee us to stay up. If we get 6, then it's going to be a little bit of luck that goes with it, but 7 keeps us up. So we've been aiming for that. So every game we come to, so St Kevin's is next, so we'll have a good crack at trying to win that, and then we'll just, treat every game like a final and really finish off the year strongly. And but our first goal is to get those 7 wins, and obviously the last game of the year will be a great one for both Blues and Blacks.
Well,
great way to finish off the season, the derby.
Most certainly is, Dale. The one thing that's on their side, Jace, is Dale knows 12 months ago they were out at the Melbourne Uni Oval and upset St Kevin's in the corresponding game. They've beaten Fitzroy earlier on in the year, and they also have beaten the University Blues earlier on in the year. So, Dale, a little bit of history on your side, but of course you've got to go out there and execute it. It's been great to have you on for the love of the game. Thank you for joining us, and good luck for the last few weeks of the season.
No worries, guys. Not an absolute pleasure.
Awesome to spend some time with Dale Bauer. They'll enjoy the break before they face off against St Kevin's in 2 weeks' time. Jace, what about the win by Collegians on the weekend?
Speaking of Collegians, teams went goal for goal against University Blues before the Lions got on top in time on early in the first term. They kicked 3 goals in 7 minutes, got out to a 14-point lead. The Blues hit back superbly, though. Like, they didn't lie down. They kicked the first 3 goals of the second term, and then the reigning premiers did what they do sometimes. They flexed their muscle in time on. They kicked 5 goals in 6 minutes at the end of the second term, Collegians, just when it was the first half of that second quarter was all University Blues. And somehow Collegians just hit the switch and kicked 5 in 6 minutes. They kicked another 6 goals to 2 in the third term. Blues kicked the only 3 of the final term to make it 28 points. But really, up until that point in time, it was a very comfortable sort of 50-odd point win. So Collegians did what they had to do, and suddenly they're back in the hunt.
Yeah, that they are. It's just, this run home is going to be so exciting. But I don't know quite how to feel about Collegians, because they've had this massive list turnover over the off-season. New coach, I think Geordie McKenzie has done a superb job considering, but geez, I feel that they really need to be the team now that pushes into the 4, considering what they had last year. They've been, we saw them most recently at St Kevin's College, Joey, where they were really disappointing on a wet day. Well, we've got a bit to talk about as far as their young guys. Josh Walker's a bloke who I really love. The story with Ben Daru coming back in. I just feel a little bit with Collegians that if they don't make the top 4, and I understand the turnover from this position, with Xavs being a little bit flaky week to week, that it is a bit of a missed opportunity, a bit of a wasted year, perhaps. I'm not sure if you feel the same.
Well, they've been up for a very long time.
They have.
Okay,
yep.
So obviously the premiership was the culmination of a couple of years building prior to that. 2022, they went out in straight sets, so they were deep into the finals, and of course 2021 was the year they were afforded the luxury.
Massive turnover in players as well.
Fortunes.
Yes.
Let's be clear.
Yeah. There is.
Significant.
And, So 2021 they finished in the bottom 2, but because we didn't have a season completed, they were able to stay up, and then they reset for 2022. The heartache of that year pushed them into premiership areas last year. There's a stack of players that are injured as well. As I look at the team sheet that ran out on the weekend, the guys that a part of the premiership that didn't retire are all out injured at the moment, playing a really pivotal role in these young kids getting the opportunity to play. They're also 8% back, Jace, which is good as a couple of games.
Yeah.
We're considering they're playing Scotch and
8%
Old
could be
in
nothing.
the final game.
And that's what I said. Look, maybe it does come down to percentage. If they both win win their games against Fitzroy and St Bernard's,
well, they're not
and
beating
lose the other
Fitzroy
two,
and making up 8%.
No,
That's the only game they're winning. Collegians.
Well, it depends on the loss margins in the other two games. Like if Old Brighton or Old Scotch blow out either Xavs or Collegians in one or both of those games, 8%'s nothing in the scheme of things. Couple of names I just wanted to mention before we move on from Collegians. Bendaroo played back on the weekend. Yeah, they threw him back and did a great job behind the football. And Lukic is, kick four and is he's a great prospect up forward. And they could throw Daru back to just add a little bit of extra strength and size in their back line. And they used Will Dean in the ruck, and he did a great job as well. So we've spoken about Bear Mayhood and, losing some of their bigger players and things. They've made a few tactical and positional adjustments, and they've worked for them.
And I just don't want to act like I'm coming really hard for Collegians here. So I really wanted to talk a bit about Dill Thomas as well. Like, he is a really outstanding player, like another 3 goals on the weekend, one of those sort of half-forward wingmen, just so classy. But Will Dean's a great story because I think that when I saw them for the first time they took on the Cardinals, he did look a little bit lost in the ruck, and he's improved every week from that point. Like, to be named best for your team in the ruck, like, it's such a hard position to play. So super impressed with him, and especially when you consider that Sam Hayes is lining up for the University Blues. I've seen Sam Hayes have games where he's had 70, 80 hitouts in a game and just dominate from the ruck. So that's a massive step for Will Dean's development. Bendaroo down back, I really like that. Like, he's such a strong man. He's so hard to beat in one-on-one contests. You think that what he would give away perhaps in speed that he make up in strength. And the fact that they've been able to hold the Blues, I suppose, to 8 goals in 3 quarters, they have been able to come back late 3-3 in that final term, as you mentioned off the top. Maybe they've found something there for the run home, I think.
Well, I think they'll need to find a couple more players if they want to be any chance. Just quickly, I've done this over the last couple of years, looking at premiership outfits and how many players they use and how many are able to get through a season. So they're up to now over 40 Collegians after 36 last year. High turnover, and then they're just kids that are coming in because they haven't got a lot of depth.
Talking about their kids, though, they've got some good ones. Jasper Davies coming along at a rate of knots.
Great kids.
You mentioned Dill Thomas, Eddie King, and our Anytime Fitness Rising Star nominee for this week, Josh Walker.
Oh, lucky. I thought you were going to say Josh Herriot.
Having a fantastic year, Josh Walker. 20 years of age, started with a season in the under-9s at Frankston Dolphins, then came all the way through with the Waverley Blues through their system. 11 games with Oakley in the Coates League last season, polled in 6 of those. Played 11 senior games for the Blues in the Eastern Footy League last year and polled in 8 of those. Former Wesley student, so he went across to Collegians this season. He's been one of the most eye-catching young talents in the Premier League, in the Premier Men's this season. He's been outstanding. 15 games, polled votes in 7 of those 15. He's kicked 17 goals, kicked 3 against St Bernard's, he kicked 3 against Uni Blues, and again was amongst the Collegians' best on Saturday. 26 disposals, 12 of those contested, 6 clearances, 6 marks, 7 inside 50s, 4 rebound 50s and a goal. Covering territory, helping out at both ends of the ground, putting up massive numbers for a kid in his first year.
And that sounds like he's playing the inside wing as well. So you see, like, there's some wings who stay really wide, and I think that the first time I saw him, he was staying quite wide against the Cardinals. But those stats,
12
he sounds like he's
contested
playing
possessions
inside,
and 6 clearances.
Which is a great bit of development for the young man.
So he'd be on one wing and Dill Thomas would be on the other.
Yeah, they've got some exciting young talent there. It's just a question of how quickly they can develop. And then while we're on our Anytime Fitness Rising Star nominees, the other one for this week in the women's competition from UHSVU in Division 3 Women's is Ava Menard. Ava's 19 years of age. She started her footy journey in under-9s at West Footscray, joined the Flemington Juniors from under-12s, came all the way through their junior program, played in the Western Footy League's under-15 development squad, the Western Bulldogs under-16 squad. Couple of games for UHSVU last season while she was still playing under-18s for Flemington, and then this year has joined them permanently. She's polled votes in 12 of her 16 games, including 6 of the last 7 and the last 4 straight. So bearing in mind she's 19 years of age, she was BOG in round 14, she was second best in round 15, and then she was BOG again in their 38-point win over Wattle Park on Saturday. So she's in super form. And again, we talk about young kids and their development and how important they are to a team. Well, Ava's having a great season. So congratulations to Josh Walker and Ava Menard, our round 15 nominees for our Anytime Fitness Rising Star.
Absolutely. Congratulations to both of those. Now, Jace, we've been going for a while, and somehow we still haven't mentioned the fact that Fitzroy had a 3-point win over the Old Melburnians. You didn't want to talk about it off the top?
Look, Joey, I think there's two different approaches on this podcast. So yourself, with being a St Bernard's man, that we'll talk about that across the top. But the Roy boys,
they got walloped, so we didn't touch that
did we?
at all.
Okay.
No, we haven't touched St Bernard's yet.
Yeah, really? Okay. I did notice that. But the Roys, we're just plugging away. We're just plugging away. Plugging away.
Kicked 5 goals in the first quarter and nearly blew it. But sure, plugging away. Held goals in the final term. Is that plugging away?
4 points.
How'd they do it, Paddy? Who were the players that started for Fitzroy to give him this win?
Well, this won't surprise anyone, but Nathan Liggeris had a stack of it. 31 disposals. I think I've got a cease and desist from the Harvey family. Marcel Laidlaw, 3 goals from his 17 disposals. He's got to be one of the more exciting talents in the competition. Jason, I'm interested in what Travis Ronaldson had to say about the performance, because this is something, and we're going to get into this as the year continues, this relegation battle with that Blacks victory is significantly heating up.
Yeah, look, they were delighted with their start, and Fitzroy had 20 inside 50s to 3 in the first quarter. So they came out of the blocks.
3?
Came out of the blocks at Elstonwick Park, so on the road. Bearing in mind, this is their first ever away win in Premier Men's because their other wins have been at home. So they led by 25 points at the first break, and that obviously just allowed them to settle into the game. Now, OMs began to eat into that deficit in the second term. They kicked 3 goals to 1 and got it back to sort of 14 points. And then it was single digits early in the third when Sam Lowby kicked a goal. And at that point, you're sort of thinking, Fitzroy maybe fired their shot early in the game and OMs are going to run over the top of them. In the next 20 minutes, the margin kind of hovered around the teens. OMs got on top around the contest and sorted out the supply issues that they had early in the game. But then the Royals surged again. They kicked 3 goals in 3.5 minutes in time on to again kick out to a 23-point lead at three-quarter time. OMs had their chances early in the last quarter. They kicked 4 consecutive behinds. Then they kicked a couple in a couple of minutes, got them back within 9 points midway through the term. And again, you're thinking, the OMs are probably going to run over the top of them and win the game. But Fitzroy dug in. They were peppered in the last quarter. OMs had 16 inside 50s to 8, but Fitzroy managed to hang on and come up with their first ever Premier Men's away win. And it does keep their hopes of remaining in the top tier alive. They're now just half a game behind OMs and 1 game behind St Bernard's with 3 to play.
And their games are University Blues, University Blacks, both at Brunswick Street Oval. Collegians that final game.
Yep. Mm-hmm. They look at that and go,
and the
you know what?
percentages are relevant because of Old Melburnians.
That's it. We're still alive here, very much so. So it's at the moment, if we look at the relegation race, Fitzroy on the bottom, 12 points. Old Melburnians 14, just ahead of them. Another half game to St Bernard's. There's only 1 game between those 3 teams, and then University Blacks are a game ahead of that. So you would think it's between St Bernard's, Old Melburnians and Fitzroy, but you quite rightly mentioned Fitzroy's run home. They've got a couple of games there that they'd look at and go, if we're good enough, we can pinch those.
Well, it's a 16% percentage differential at the moment from Fitzroy to St Bernard's. So you think that's almost 2 games?
Yeah.
Old Xaverians, St Kevin's, Old Melburnians, St Bernard's last 3.
So you think St Bernard's
that last game
one more
is going to be massive. Might be an SEN game, that one.
It could be an SEN game. Jesus, schedule is
September
having
7.
a good few wins.
It will be an SEN game. St Bernard's versus Old Melburnians will be there to see. It could be a battle for relegation.
I think I'm free that day.
Make yourself available that day.
No, it is interesting.
We move the VFL finals to night games.
Are we actually?
No, that's unlikely.
I was about to say.
That's unlikely.
The Port Melbourne Lights would certainly struggle
certainly
with that
won't
one.
have any AFL games in Melbourne the way the ladder's looking.
Might want to have one down in G-Town, though.
Possibly. Speaking of St Bernard, so they got flogged.
Yeah.
Absolutely flogged by Old Brighton. I noticed they started really well, Jason.
Yeah, they kicked 4 of the first 5 goals.
Started really well, but...
we thought you might get a bust into the booth to start singing the song at half-time.
I'd never get ahead of myself at St Bernard's.
Well, was that little 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and this has been St Bernard's problem for a lot of the year. They just haven't quite been able to concentrate the full 4 quarters. So they kicked 4 of the first 5 goals, but then 3 goals in 4 minutes entering time on in the first term, and suddenly it's back to a 1-point game at quarter time, and all that work that they'd done early to get a jump was wiped out. And then Brighton's efficiency up forward on show in the second and third terms. So here's the thing. They actually had 2 fewer inside 50s across the middle 2 quarters, Brighton. So St Bernard's were generating opportunities. But they kicked 10-2 to 5-9, Old Brighton. They just took their chances.
When they played early in the year, I think Brighton might have kicked 8-22 in that corresponding game. So they've kicked 20 goals, 8 this time around. I've been told that there are 9 players out of last year's premiership team, including 6 of the top 7 in St Bernard's B and F count from 2023. So when you're talking about their key players missing, Not surprising that they slipped away. Great to hear, though, that they did put up a fight in the first half, Paddy.
Just want to talk about my man Joey Campili again, because this bloke is on a tear. Another 5 snags. I think this is the story for old Brighton, because Will Lewis has got a hamstring injury. It's on the more serious side of hamstring injuries. It's been
a while now.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we see him again before finals start. But the fact that they've, through requirement, had to play Joey Campili as their full forward, a young fella who they weren't expecting the world from, and he's had, in the last 3 weeks, I would say he's kicked it, I think, about 10 goals in 3 weeks from memory off the top of my head. As a young fella who's certainly, he was blooded late last season when they didn't have many players available to them. This may be the sort of redeeming feature in this back end of the year that hasn't quite gone exactly perfectly for Rob Brighton with that loss and how Old Scotch are coming, that I don't really have them as the number 1 seed anymore. Joey Campili strikes me as a guy who we're going to be talking about a lot in September, even more than I'm talking about him in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's a massive win for Old Brighton, as you mentioned. Good steadying win for them. Puts them, and when St Kevin's has lost, it gives them another 6-point buffer out in front again. So just steady the ship nicely for Old Brighton, and they are now a game and a half plus 25% ahead with 2 games clear with 3 to play. 2.5 games clear with 3 to play. So you would think top spot's pretty much wrapped up.
I see Nick Pavlou came back from that broken arm last week that he looked like he sustained, Paddy, by kicking a goal and probably having another 40 disposals against St Bernard's. Lucky Filipovic back at the side. Tom Yorgie, he was out on the weekend, so he still got to come back in. James Hope also kicked a couple of goals as well. Still plenty more to come on For the Love of the Game. After this, we'll talk about Premier B, and also Brayden May is going to join us from the Herald Sun to talk about the rest of what's going on in the Ammos. You're listening to For the Love of the Game, all thanks to MECWACARE.
Tickets are now on sale for one of the signature events on the VAFA calendar, the William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon, Friday, September 6 at Zinc. It's always a fantastic afternoon of entertainment as we celebrate the AFL and VAFA Final Series. And in 2024, we have former Essendon goal-kicking great Matthew Lloyd and Hawthorn Premiership player Campbell Brown locking horns once again to draw a line in the sand, have a few laughs, and preview the upcoming AFL Final Series. While Jason Bennett and Joey Pignataro will join me, Paddy Grindlay, to preview the 2024 VAFA Final Series in a live episode of For the Love of the Game. So join us for a delicious lunch and plenty of laughs as we celebrate finals footy. Head to the VAFA website to grab your tickets now. It's the William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon, Friday, September 6. We'll see you there.
This is For the Love of the Game, the official podcast of the Ammos. Round 15 for Premier B, Paddy. And as my eyes roll down the scores, they couldn't be split at Chelsworth Park. Is that the game of the round?
Old Trinity, Old Camberwell. 12-15-87 to 14-3-87. Yep. So Old Trinity were 37 points down in this one. This is another one where Donald McDonald, and this was written in that he was away in Tassie with some work with North Melbourne. He's missed 2 in a row. Last week, it's not every week that your son plays his 200th AFL game for the North Melbourne Footy Club. So he missed out on this one. The Tees were down by 6 goals. They haul back the margin to escape with 2 points. And that has just thrown a cat amongst the pigeons as far as the ladder is concerned. It's been just an incredible year in Premier B, so hard to pick. So you'd think that D-Lar and Old Haileybury at the moment seem to be the 1 and 2 seed. They're going to go through, you'd think, from this point. From there, who knows? It's just absolutely fantastic.
They must have been celebrating at Old Ivanhoe because Old Trinity and Old Camberwell drawing means that they're both only half a game ahead of Old Ivanhoe sitting in 6th position. So it was the best possible result.
Well, were they celebrating when they saw their own score against De La Salle?
You've got to look at the positives.
Well, you think, so De La Salle are the competitions now. They're the highest scoring team. It's their 5th time they've kicked 100 points. They've had this brilliant winning run, which has come at an average margin of 56.5 points, if you don't mind. The lowest winning margin for that was a 26-point defeat of Old Haileybury, who are the number 1 seed in many people's eyes this season.
Who's the number 1 seed in your eyes right now?
I have to go with D-Lar. I have to. They've beaten the team that are top of the ladder. They keep just winning. They've won 6 on the trot now. You cannot go past the team that has beaten Old Haileybury. I think these will be the 2 teams that we see probably go up to Premier Division. I think these will be the 2 teams that we see on Grand Final Day.
Oh, you're putting a line through Old Geelong's chances.
I'm not putting a line necessarily through the Hogs.
Well, it's very hard to pick 3 teams if you've got a 2-team
Just
Grand
giving
Final.
his power rankings.
Just thinking. But the Ogs do have a big game this week against the Bloods. They've got a really tough little run home, Nathan Brown's team. He is one of the best conversationalists in the competition and a great man too. But they have both Old Haileybury and D-Lar in their last 3. You'd think they'd probably need to win or draw one of those because the other game is Beau Morris. considering that they're currently 2 points safe in the top 4 from Old Trinity and Old Camberwell. And then Old Ivanhoe, they're 4 points back, but they've also got 19 less percentage points. So you'd think it's 3 to 5 is a complete toss-up at this point of the year.
Speaking of Beau Morris, they went down to Williamstown CYMS by 9 goals at Banksia Reserve on the weekend. Now, 2 or 3 weeks ago when we spoke to Con, we looked at the road ahead. At this stage, Willie CYMS were still sitting in the relegation zone, and it looked like a long road back for them. They've managed to win those games we talked about, as being potentially winnable. And so now you look at the relegation race, and it's a race in 4 again. Beau Morris have been drawn back into that relegation race. They sit 7th on 20 points, 82.7. Half a game back, Williamstown CYMS, 18 points, 74.5. Another half game to Caulfield, 16, 80.7. And then St Bede's. So St Bede's will be going down. They're 3 games plus percentage behind the rest of that. So it's a race in 3 between Beau Morris, CYMS and Caulfield Grammarians for that second relegation spot.
And Willie CYMS have been in the relegation zone. They've been in there since round 2. So they've been fully aware of their situation for a long time, and that was probably the story out of the game, is that Willie were well aware that they needed to win this game should they escape. Beau Morris probably less aware of it. So Josh Burke just saying they would have loved a little bit more, probably that effort. But again, this is a very young Sharks team, and the Willie CYMS team does have a few stronger, more mature bodies. They've now found layers to their game, and they're really keen to test those layers out against Old Ivanhoe and Old Trinity. We spoke about earlier in the season that they were building a really strong contested game. They've now found some really diverse options inside forward 50, and they're now hurting teams on the outside as well. So really encouraging signs. Helps when you have Archie Manton, though. So he comes back from Port Melbourne. He kicked 7 goals against Beau Morris back in round 6. He kicks another 5 this weekend, 4 in the first half to really make things emphatic.
Before we take a break, first word answers. This is Caulfield's last 3. Trinity away.
Loss.
Old Ivanhoe away.
Loss.
Old Camberwell at home.
Loss.
Okay.
And that's the beauty here is that the Bowie...
Do you want the Bowie one?
Yeah.
St Bede's away.
That's the thing. So Bowie and CYMS both play St Bede's.
Old Geelong away.
Yeah, that's a loss.
Old Trinity at home. And then Williamstown, Old Ivanhoe away.
Yep.
Old Trinity at home, St Bede's in the final game.
So that's the advantage.
They've got a draw, so their percentage is irrelevant.
Yep.
But the Caulfield-Beau Morris percentage don't separate it by 2 points.
Yeah, that's right. So the advantage that Bowie and CYMS have with respect to St Bede's is that they both play St Bede's on the run home, which gives them that possibility of picking up those vital 4 points. So at the moment, Grammarians are going to have to find a way to pull off an upset or 2, you would think.
Well, here's the key thing. So the Grammarians have been short players for the last month or month and a half, you'd say. They've just now started to have these older guys feed back into the team. And it's just been about trying to get them back up to speed after a few weeks of being off their feet. So that's the question. Can you now get the reinforcements in so you can just secure that extra game to get back over the top? It's going to be a cracking finish to the year.
You can read about Paddy's report of Premier B on vafa.com.au. Let's move over to the rest of the competition with Brayden May from the Herald Sun and Community TV. Brayden, Marsland had a massive win on the weekend, beating Oakley by 91 points.
Yeah, it's going to shape the relegation battle, I think, in the 3rd tier. 1 game clear and percentage of place Monash Blues now with a fortnight to go. They'll play Pegs and on the way home, and those 2 sides were out of the finals mixed mathematically. So anything can happen. Marsden's got a lot to play for. They're probably their status, I would think, in the 3rd tier. Yeah, well, the big thing about that massive percentage boost, Brayden, because now it's Oakley on 4 points on the bottom, Monash Blues a game ahead on 8 points in 9th, and then now Marsland are a game ahead plus 13%. So effectively 2 games clear with a few to play. Yeah, it's really exciting for Marsland. I guess it goes to the great mentality that they've got. The games are the old 8 point talk about, and it's so important to be your best footy. They only just beat us earlier in the season. I think it was by about 13 points. So to really tune up and produce that sort of performance, you can't discount them in their last 2 either. Paddy, question without notice. Do you know how many games there are left in Premier C for the home and away season?
3 home and away games, but there are finals as well, Joey, because I think I know where you're going.
I didn't ask you about finals. I just wanted to know how many games there were left, because old mate Mitch Brown, 70.
Kicked another 4.
Can he kick 30 in his last 3 home and away games?
Plus finals.
Plus finals.
No.
I think is there a play-in as well that we can include here?
So he's got at least 4 games to get 30.
30, so just need 8 a week. Yeah.
Can be done.
You get a week with 6 in there somewhere.
Can be done.
Yeah, easily.
Geez, there were some beltings in this Premier C over the weekend.
Moving right along.
Have a look. Marcellin 91 points, Old Kerry by 81, Ajax by 107, and Hampton by 71. Brayden, it speaks to the powerhouses at the top of this division. They are putting some smackings down.
Yeah, most definitely. And that gap's probably just widened in the half of the season as these top teams start to tune up for the final season. I think it is Ajax and Old Kerry in the last round. That may well decide top because the three teams are all locked away on the record at the moment. There's a bit of a percent difference, though.
I'm not sure if you've been to HQ yet, Jace, but how's the Peacock going after a 71-point win?
Well, the amazing thing about it is they're 13-2, but they're sitting third.
He's nervous.
13-2 for the year, and that's good enough to get you to third spot on the ladder. It is an unbelievably competitive Premier C this year.
I guarantee you, he's nervous. And the only thing that's calming his nerves is the fact that his Hawks are going bloody well at the AFL level. I can tell you that for sure, Paddy.
And more to your point, Jace, just looking at the percentage of the top four, so Old Kerry 205, Ajax 187, Hampton Rovers 169, Parkdale 174.8, and then the rest of the competition is 90 or under. So it's a real competition in two parts.
It's definitely the top four in the bottom six.
Equalisation at its very best in Premier C.
It's skewed. Let's talk Division 1. The top four looks to be all but set there too, Brayden.
Yeah, well, there's a fortnight unless we get some smackings that spoke about similar to Premier C. UHS will finish in fourth. They're 2 games and percentage clear. Q and Old Peninsula, who have fallen over cliffs the last couple of weeks after we spoke them as dark horse to make finals. But UHS, they've got a pretty favourable run. They'll play West Brunswick in the relegation battle and then the Bears in the final round.
Hey, looking at the goal kicking for this particular section, I know I've been banging on about Mitch Brown and 70 goals. It is an amazing effort. But when you look at this, Brandon Jackson from UHSVU leads all covers with 38.
Yep.
And second to him is Bailey Payes, who was last year's Rising Star, the Anytime Fitness Rising Star for the whole of the Ammos, 36. Like, it is very tight when it comes to the sharpshooters of Division 1.
Had another great year, Bailey Payes, incidentally. He's polled best player votes in 11 of his 16 games. So he just is, pumping it out and playing really good, consistent footy. But yeah, it just goes to show, doesn't it, that from different divisions have different ways of going about it. And in Division 1, it's goals by committee.
It's interesting if you look at the other end of the ladder here. So the relegation battle is probably, you'd say, 1 in 3 with where Preston are sitting with their 6 wins and percentage of 80.1, where it's Terry Penola, West Brunswick and the Old Yarra Cobras sort of duking it out. You'd think Old Yarra with 2 wins are probably the first one you'd say going down, but West Brunswick and Terry Penola separated by a game and by about 2% as well. So that's a really interesting little run home with 2 weeks to go.
Brunswick sitting on top of the ladder in that top of the table clash against Whitefriars that we were really pumping up last week, Brayden, but it turned out to be a blowout.
Yeah, Whitefriars came away with an 81 win. It's probably a result we didn't expect in terms of the margin either way. But just to show Brunswick are just that far clear, they can afford to drop and try some things on the way. But great for Whitefriars. They're now leading the race for the double chance, where outside the 5 not too long ago, they're arguably in the best form in that division.
Well, the amazing thing about it was 81 points, but they had 36 scoring shots to 10. They kicked 15-21. So it could have been substantially more than 81 points.
My question on the back of that to both of you guys and to Brayden, is that concerning if you're Brunswick?
Yeah.
Because it's not we'll learn some things out of this game that we can play in a couple of weeks' time. You're in first spot. But there's got to be a line where you just can't afford to get absolutely belted. No. That starts to get into the back of your head, doesn't it?
Especially by a team that you're quite possibly coming up against in September.
If they want to win the grand final in this section, from what I can see, they're going to obviously have to play them, likely, in the first week, and they're probably going to have to play them in the grand final if they want to win it.
Well, I think we see this across all levels, right? Like in the AFL, we saw the Swans get absolutely pumped by Port Adelaide by over 100 points, which I think completely out of the box result. Maybe it's something similar to this, but you don't want to be conceding 36 scoring shots. That is, and kicking only 4 goals yourself. Like I hope Gastro has gone through that club because that's the only excuse that they've got.
And then you look at the other end of the table there in Div 2 men's, Brayden, and the relegation battle's taken another twist.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the maths before. It was fun. Bull and Templestowe got a win, but Melbourne High School Old Boys. So that took them to 4 wins for the season. To put it into context, Amass St. Leo's were relegated with 4 wins from this division in 2018, and you go back a year later to Port O'Hara, who were relegated with 7 wins in 2019. So we're looking at one of the all-time relegation battles at the moment, and teams around each other play each other at the moment. Bullens are still by the ladder with a record of 4-11. Wattle Park ahead on percentage, and then Aquinas, who we talked up that long ago, are only half a game ahead. St. Mary's Legion on 22 points, and then even Melbourne High School have been pulled into this battle on 26 points and a percentage of 89.08 with games against Flick and St. Mary's Legion to come.
And this is the interesting thing, I think, Jace, about these divisions, and we see it from Prem down, is that the draw is playing such havoc with the bottom of the ladder because Bulleen and Wattle Park, they've got to draw a piece. St. Mary's Legions and Melbourne High School Old Boys have got to draw too. So all of a sudden, in some battles, percentage matters. In others, it doesn't. It's just such an entertaining finish to the year.
No such dramas for Paran. They've won 10 in a row.
Yeah, they're absolutely fun in Division 1. They're 2 games clear and just 40% clear with just a couple to go. They smacked Old Peninsula by 100 points on the weekend. And if you want to look more positives, despite 10 in a row, Brody and Mackenzie Main, 2 of their key players, didn't play on the weekend. So they're back in, which is just ominous.
That's a handy result when it comes to the fact that they're hanging on to 4th spot in Division 1. What about the great news that is in Division 3, the Ely Park Sharks? This might be the first time in a long time, Brayden, that they're outside the bottom 2 of any section that they're in. They've had their 3rd win for the season on the weekend.
It's a really good result for that footy club. It's a real probably credit. The players is one thing, but the volunteers, the people that are stuck fat during the hard times, volunteers, they do it for free, for not much reward. They do things that just to get the teams out in the park. A huge congratulations needs to go to the entire club.
And an absolute cracker of a game in Div 3 up the ladder there between St John's and Canterbury. St John's getting the Chocolates by 5 points in a thriller. And a game that must have been a heck of a fun game to watch because it was 15-16, 106 St John's, Canterbury 14-17, 101. So it's not often you see 2 teams get over 100 points or you kick 100 and lose.
Yep.
Oh, most definitely. And I think to just add to injury to Canterbury, they actually slipped out of the top 3 because Powerhouse got the better of Box Hill North.
And just something, Joey, before we move on, is that Matthew Carnelli, I think he's thrown away a real opportunity for the ton because he's kicked 61 from 10 games this year. Another 5 on the weekend. You're thinking an average of 6 a game. If he could have just played the whole year through, that you would be eating your words.
It's going to be very hard for him to kick any more this weekend in particular because they've got to buy St John's, so they're probably going to concede top spot because North Brunswick are taking on Ely Park for that spot, Brayden, when they're probably going to meet in a couple of weeks' time, you'd say, the first final, St John's and North Brunswick.
It would depend who gets the week off, being a top 5 in the bottom tier.
Oh, yes, a very good point you make.
Well played, Brady.
Yes, a very good point you make because there is an extra team in Division 3.
He's all over it, Braden.
Mm. That's good. That's what he's paid to be, all
Correct.
over it.
That's why we have him on.
Paid the big bucks.
What are you writing about this week, Brayden?
I'm going to hopefully have a bit to Paran about what has got them going so well. And White Fries, they're going quite well. And it would be nice to track down Williamstown CYMS. I'm sure you guys touched on there, lifting out the relegation zone. But keep an eye out. We're going to take a look at some of the best women's performers from the Premier Division as their final series get underway.
Oh, looking forward to reading all of that. And you can just hit up Paddy Grindlay for Con's number. He speaks to him on a Monday for the best part of 3 hours. They go through Richmond therapy before they talk about Williamstown in depth. Brayden, we'll read about your stuff on the Herald Sun website. Thanks for joining us.
Beautiful. Thanks very much, guys.
Great to hear from BRAYDEN MAY from the Herald Sun and Community TV. You can read about his stuff on the website. Hey, Jace, we are into what would be our second week of finals.
So we've got Divisional Women's start this week. They've got semi-finals. So let's talk to Div 1.
Sorry to cut you off. We're into the women's finals for every section, but were you back Premier? I think we might be.
Divisional Women's, 1, 2 and 3 all this weekend, plus 4. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3 and 4 are all in there, plus Premier B.
Oh, fantastic.
As well. So let's start with the Divisional Women's semi-finals. Division 1 Women's, 2 semi-finals. The first one is Parkdale versus Collegians at Brighton Beach Oval, 2:10 on Saturday. The second semi-final of Division 1 at Elstonwick Park, 2:10 on Saturday, Old Brighton versus Marcelin.
Oh, cracking game, that one.
Division 2 Women's first semi-final at Coburg City Oval on Saturday, 2:10, Powerhouse Hampton Rovers.
Coburg City Oval. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, we've got some great venues this year. We've managed to
venue.
pull in some VFL venues, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's actually a triple header that day. So if you want to get along and see some great divisional women's footy, it'll start at 9:20 in the morning with the Division 3 first semi, D-Lar and Box Hill, into the second semi, Therry Penola versus Latrobe Uni, and then that first semi-final in Division 2 women's powerhouse in Hampton. So it's a triple header down at Coburg on Saturday. Then on Sunday, the Division 2 second semi, Glen Ira Old McKinnon versus Whitefriars at Latrobe University at 11:40. Then the qualifying final of Division 4 women's, MCCFC against Albert Park. And then the venue to be determined still. And then the Division 4 elimination finals, Kew versus North Brunswick. So all that divisional women's footy, you can see all the schedules and locations and everything on our VAFA website. Just go to vafa.com.au. So great to have all that divisional semi-final action happening this weekend. Then we talk Premier B women's, Joey. And we've got, again, a triple header at Whitefriars kicking off. This is all on Sunday at Whitefriars. Fitzroy versus Old Xavs from 9:20 in the second semi. Then at 11:40, straight after that, it's Fitzroy versus St Bede's Mentone in the seniors. And then Westbourne versus St Bede's in the Premier Women's Reserve. So again, get along to Whitefriars on Sunday from 9:20, a triple header of Premier B seniors and reserves action. And we've also got the thirds men kick in this week as well. So best of luck to everyone involved in that. Saturday at Elsternwick Park, 11:40, Mentone versus Old Brighton in a prelim final. And then the other prelim final in Division 3 South is at Brighton Beach, 11:40 Saturday. It is Ormond versus Parkdale Vultures. Then across on Sunday, we have a doubleheader at Waverley Oval. So another oval that we're bringing in, which is great. And St Kevin's involved in both of these. It's the
don't tell me.
Thirds Division 1 men's St Kevin's prelim final between St Kevin's and Ajax into the thirds Premier men's prelim final, St Kevin's versus Old Scotch from 2:55 at Waverley.
Of course it is.
You're filthed up big time here, Jake.
Then the thirds Division 2 North men's preliminary final, Old Carey versus Old Camberwell, 9:20 at Latrobe. And then the thirds Division 3 North play their two semi-finals. The first semi between Whitefriars and MHSOB, venue to be determined. And the second semi, Old Xavs versus Ivanhoe, again, venue to be determined. So log on to the VAFA website over the next couple of days. All the information you need on the final series. Best of luck to everyone playing.
It'll be absolutely fantastic. And read them all on vafa.com.au. Now, Premier B continues this week, so Paddy, you've still got to keep working. Type away on those little fingers of yours for your piece so you can speak to Donald McDonald and Anson Brownless and Conter Zoglu and anyone else you speak to on a Monday. Next week, we're going to tip for Premier B for round 16, Jace.
Let's get into it. 2 o'clock, Gordon Barnard. Old Camberwell versus D-Lar.
Old Camberwell.
D-Lar Cell.
You're such a petty, spiteful, small man. And I mean that in
He's not incorrect in any way, shape or form.
I'm not talking physically.
There was real hate in that, Jason.
No, just I was speaking on behalf of, who was it you bagged? D-Lar.
I think you two have some issues that you need to sort out after the recording of the podcast.
2 o'clock Saturday, Princes Park, Caulfield South, Old Haileybury versus Old Geelong. Can you mount a case for the Ogs?
I can, but I'm not going to. I just think that Old Haileybury are the classiest team in the competition, and if they have all the weapons at their disposal, they should be too good for the Ogs. Should.
Joseph?
Agreed. Old Haileybury.
Yeah, what he said, ditto. Chelswick Park, 2 o'clock.
He's still recovering after
Saturday.
the baking you gave him.
Old Ivanhoe versus CYMS.
Williamstown for me.
Wow. Yeah, this is a genuine toss-up. Old Ivanhoe very undermanned last week. I'm going to stick with Jared Geeshan's mob, but they are 2-5 at home this year.
Are they really? Wow.
2 o'clock Saturday, Daily Oval Males Playing Fields. Old Trinity versus Caulfield Grammarians.
Tees for me.
Can't go past the green and gold.
Final game of the weekend, 2 o'clock Mentone. St Bede's Mentone versus Beau Morris. We've talked about Beau Morris and the pressure they're under. St Bede's, can they get them?
Bowie, I reckon, will have a big week on the track. But this game at Brindisi Street, it'll be worth watching the replay purely for the volume behind the goals because it is the loudest I've heard across the VAFA. The Sharks to respond and win. Oh, you reckon he says?
Brindisi Street's the loudest.
Someone from the St Bernard's fraternity is about to come for me, I think.
No. I'm asking genuinely. You
genuinely.
Brindisi Street is the loudest?
Some of the games that I've been watching on Catch Up on the fantastic VAFA TV resource that we have, so all the games that are taped there you can watch in full, it's astounding about how many bodies they get behind the goals, how loud they are. and how, on occasion, close they are to the microphone that's recording the game.
Yes.
Who's the loudest for you?
Collegians get quite vocal in William Buck Premier. We had a night at Ormond. A Friday night at Ormond was rowdy.
Friday nights, I think you have to rule out here. Like Saturday, 2 p.m.
Xavs people, when they're up and about, let you know that they're up and about.
That
Hasn't happened for 7 years, but they let you know. I don't mind the shout for St. Bede's at Brindisi Street. It's also because it's quite small, so it's contained. I'm tipping Bo Morris in that game, by the way.
Beautiful. Well done.
We got a week off next week?
No.
Because Premier's...
Doesn't work that way, does it?
Well, hang on. If Premier clubs get a bye, do we get a bye?
No, because the rest of the competition's still going.
I'm writing a Premier B report.
There's lots of great stuff to talk about next week.
Maybe I'll have a bye then.
We've got all those finals to talk about.
I've got to do my Richmond catch-up with Con, or else it's just not the same for me on Mondays.
All right, confirm we're back next week on For the Love of the Game, leading into the final couple of weeks of the season. 3 weeks to go for William Buck Premier, 2 weeks for the Premier sections and the divisions. Good luck to everyone playing in the finals. You can read about them all at BAFA.com.au. We'll see you next week.
Have a lovely week, you big-hearted, massive, kind, warm, fuzzy man.
I'm getting up and I'm leaving these two to sort out their issues. Catch you next week.